Suicide Squad Isekai episode 9. So this is the penultimate episode. We got one more episode to go, and then this series is done. So let's jump right in. We start off with Cecil, and he is staring at a statue of himself, and he's basically wondering if he has any right to be called the hero, because he doesn't feel very heroic. He doesn't feel like he's living up to his title. And that's when a guard shows up, and then gets killed by another guard, and then that's when the fat minister shows up. Basically, the fat henchman under the queen. And he's wearing the Thinker helmet. And he's using this to control all the guards. And he's basically taking over the castle. And of course, Cecil's like, what are you doing? How dare you go against the kingdom? How dare you disobey the queen? And Fat Dude is like, what are you talking about? I'm doing this under the queen's orders. Cecil's, of course, shocked. He asks about the princess. Fat Dude's like, don't worry about her. Worry about yourself. And that's when we cut to the princess, who's talking to her mom. Only it's not her mom. It's actually the Undead King. And this kind of confused me at first, because it turns out the Undead King is the leader of the opposing army. I guess I can get to this a little bit later. So the Undead King has been controlling the queen for a long time. It kind of seems to be hinted that the whole war started because the Undead King took over the queen and created this war. Because the more deaths there are, the stronger the king becomes, obviously, because they're the king of undead. So this makes sense to me, because in the last episode we ended off the cliffhanger with the queen being possessed by somebody else, like someone else was pretending to be the queen. And I was like, but in the past we've seen that the queen was also like a terrible person, so that means that whoever is pretending to be the queen would have to be doing this for a long time. And it turns out that yes, that was exactly the case. I don't know what happened to the queen. I'm assuming she's dead, but the Undead King has been pretending to be the queen for pretty much a decade or so. Like, they're the ones that started the war. They're the ones that got Princess Fiona's friends killed when they were young. So the queen that we saw young Princess Fiona talking to in flashbacks was actually the Undead King. The Undead King goes to kill the princess when all of a sudden Cecil shows up and saves Princess Fiona. And the Undead King taunts Cecil about how your fiance died due to the war, right? Where I'm the one that started it. What are you going to do about it? And rather than blindly attacking the Undead King, Cecil instead stabs his sword into the ground, which causes like a magical flare. And then he rushes out with the princess. And they lock themselves up in Princess Fiona's room, where the princess is crying about the fact that her mom is gone and the kingdom is like, this whole thing has been a lie. But then eventually she sees Harley Quinn's bats next to a mirror. And that's when she decides, okay, enough crying and pitying myself. I gotta stand up and actually be a princess. We see the fat minister and some guards. They break down the door, and all of a sudden they see the princess with her back turned. And the fat minister goes and confronts her and says, don't bother trying to escape. We got you cornered. And the princess turns around and reveals that she's wearing Harley Quinn's makeup. And she takes Harley Quinn's bat and she bashes a fat minister in the face, knocks him out. And because he's knocked out, the rest of the guards also fall unconscious. They're no longer under control. And then Princess Fiona just starts beating on this guy's unconscious body with the baseball bat as Cecil watches on and is like, wow, she has a lot of pent-up anger. And then that's when we cut to outside, where the Undead King is floating above the kingdom and basically raises up an entire army of undead, and the Undead Army start attacking the civilians. Meanwhile, Princess Fiona uses magic to put off like a huge hologram of herself, and she tells the civilians, like, do not be afraid. Now is the time to fight back. Come to the castle and we will do everything we can to protect you. And so the Undead King gets pissed off at this and uses his magic. That's the thing, like, the Undead King looks like a chick, but Undead King, not Undead Queen. So I'm just going to refer to the Undead King as, I'll just go with it. The Undead King uses its magic to raise up some water that hits the castle and starts flooding the castle. And Killer Croc is riding the water waves and is going to attack the princess when King Shark shows up and starts attacking Killer Croc. And King Shark believes that Princess Fiona is Harley. So that's why he's like so gung-ho on fighting Killer Croc. Meanwhile, the Undead King goes and confronts Princess Fiona and says that you're not going to be able to do anything on your own. And Princess Fiona says, I'm not on my own. And that's when a bullet strikes and hits the Undead King. And then we see the current Suicide Squad chilling out on a cliff, watching this entire thing. And noticed that Princess Fiona is wearing Harley's makeup. So we have like a funny gag where they're like, oh my god, like she's looking up to Harley of all people. There's got to be something wrong with her. And they decide, okay, well, it's time to go help out the kingdom. So they split off into groups. Harley and Deadshot are going to go fight the zombies. Meanwhile, Rick Flag, Peacemaker, and Clayface are going to try to get into the kingdom. And so, yeah, they split off. And we just see Deadshot and Harley shooting a bunch of zombies. We see Clayface and Peacemaker killing a bunch of zombies as they're making their way towards the kingdom, towards the castle. And along the way, they notice that King Shark is getting beat up. Like, he's not able to hold his own against Killer Croc. So Peacemaker is like, all right, I'm going to go help out Killer Shark. You two continue on with the mission to get to the castle. And so he rushes off to go help Killer Shark. And then that's when Katana shows up. And Clayface is like, oh, looks like we're destined to fight each other once again. And he turns his hand into a sword, and then he goes to confront Katana. Meanwhile, with King Shark, he's doing a decent job against Killer Croc. But at one point, Killer Croc summons the Leviathan kind of creature. It's the creature that I refer to as like Dagon. He just reminds me of Dagon from the Cthulhu mythos. And it's a 2-on-1, so King Shark is not able to handle that. Killer Croc is basically taunting King Shark about fighting alone. And that's when Peacemaker shows up and says he's not alone. And everyone looks, and you see Peacemaker hanging on the tree with the American flag. And he says, America, motherfuckers. And then he dives at the two. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Meanwhile, Harley and Deadshot are fighting the zombies. At some point, Undead King summons Enchantress and says, hey, I need you to go take out these two. So Enchantress goes and starts confronting Harley and Deadshot. And the two of them start shooting their bullets at Enchantress, but she just uses her powers to create a shield and block all the bullets. And at one point, she uses her magic to destroy part of the house that's going to collapse on Deadshot and Harley. But at the very last minute, a dragon comes and holds up the house and saves the two. It turns out that this giant dragon is Arty, the baby dragon, all grown up in the span of a couple of hours. And so the dragon starts going after Enchantress. Meanwhile, Harley is attacking the zombies. She's kind of wondering, like, there's got to be something else that we can do other than just using our guns. And at one point, she has like this giant bone that she uses to hit a skeleton. And there's like a thing of magic, and it knocks the skeleton's head off. And then she has a flashback to her time in prison in episode 2, I believe, where she used like the mallet against one of the dwarven guards and just knocked the crap out of him. And that's when her chest starts glowing. Deadshot points it out, and Harley's like, oh, didn't you know that implants will sometimes glow? Not that I have any. And then she pulls out a little crystal, and it turns out this is a magical crystal, and this grants magical abilities. She's like, hey, I got an idea. She puts the crystal into her gun, and all of a sudden her gun becomes a magical gun. And she shoots it at Enchantress, and Enchantress thinks it's just a regular bullet, so she puts up a shield. But the bullet goes right through the shield and hits her. And yeah, basically the crystal is souping up whatever it's connected to. So now that's connected to the gun, it can go through Enchantress's shield. So Harley just starts shooting at Enchantress and starts nicking her in places to the point where she collapses. And Harley aims the gun right at her head and basically says, hey, I noticed your expression. I noticed that earlier before when the Thinker shot our friends, the bullet didn't go through all the way, and it was glowing green. And that was because of you. So I started thinking, why would you protect us? And now, like, your reaction. It's the same reaction that my pudding gets from people when he tells them that he's holding a loved one hostage. And then that's when Enchantress's her facial expression changes, and Harley's like, bingo. So Harley notices that, okay, there's a reason why the Enchantress is working with the Undead King. And then that's when we cut to Clayface fighting against Katana. And Katana wins, but rather than delivering a killing blow, she instead starts running away. And so Rick Flag and Clayface notice that, and they chase after her. And then that's when they come across what looks like an undead dragon. It's basically like a dragon skeleton. And within the dragon skeleton is a woman that looks exactly like Enchantress, only she looks to be held hostage or like in a sleeping state. And so what I'm thinking is this is Enchantress's real body, and that what we've been seeing is like an astral projection using her powers. And so the reason why she's working for the Undead King is because the Undead King has control over her real body. And if she doesn't follow its orders, then the Undead King will kill Enchantress. And that's probably why Katana is also working with the Empire, because Katana maybe is friends with Enchantress, or maybe Katana doesn't want to see Enchantress get killed. As for Killer Croc, I think he just wants to be on whatever side gets to cause the most chaos. So that's basically how we end the episode. So yeah, I thought this was good. I enjoyed the fact that it was more action heavy. Fighting scenes weren't like super great or anything like that, but they weren't terrible either. They were decent. But I like the fact that now everything is like kind of coming together. Pieces are starting to kind of fall into place. I know a lot of people out there haven't really seemed to enjoy this series all that much, or at least from like what forums I've seen, people kind of call it mid. But then again, these are kind of like anime fans, so I can kind of see that, because when compared to like other anime out there, I wouldn't say this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. Not even close. But when compared to other superhero stuff, I would say this is probably like one of the best things out there in recent times. I mean, obviously other than Deadpool and Wolverine, but other than that, this has been like the best thing that has come out from either Marvel or DC in a good long while. I think this is one of those where you just shut off your brain, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty entertaining. Like, the world building isn't all that great. It could be a lot better. And it's mostly just the characters and their interactions that's driving the story. Because if you really sit down and try to break it apart like I've been doing, you'll notice that some things kind of just don't make sense. Like, I brought it up so many times, but the fact that they keep going back to the kingdom only to get thrown in prison, and then they escape, or they get let out, they do their job, only to get thrown back into prison again. There literally was a point where they escape because the queen was going to kill them, and then they complete a mission, and then they go back again. And it's like, you literally broke out because they were going to kill you. Why would you go back? Like, that never made any sense to me, and it's never been explained. So stuff like that, like, if you really think about it, you'll start noticing these little nitpicks. Also, the fact that the Fat Minister has the thinking cap. Like, the last time we saw it, Katana had it. And if the Undead King is also the Emperor, then I guess it makes sense that the Katana would give the thinking cap to the Undead King, who would then give it to the Fat Minister. But then it just begged the question of, why didn't the Emperor just do that in the first place? But then it also begs the question, why didn't the Undead King, when he had the Thinker with him, back before the Thinker was killed, why didn't he just order the Thinker to take over the kingdom and the guards? Like, if you want this war to keep going, instead of just pretending to be the queen, you can also have full control over all the guards. I mean, obviously the guards will listen to the queen, but now you would have like undying loyalty as long as someone on your side has the thinking cap, because you're able to brainwash anybody. So why didn't they just use that in the first place? How come the thinking cap didn't work on Cecil, the hero? Is it because he's a hero that he's like immune to being taken over by the cap? How is the Fat Minister able to take over guards with the thinking cap when the Thinker couldn't? The Thinker could only use the thinking cap on elves. Or maybe the Thinker could have used the thinking cap on the guards, but didn't, because he wasn't ordered to, for reasons. Why not? Why did you wait this long to use the thinking cap on the guards? Why didn't you use it when the Thinker had it? So then you could have had full control over both sides and kept the war going forever. So things like this are never explained. This is just one of those series where you kind of have to turn off your brain to enjoy it for what it is. And some of you might be thinking, well, why couldn't you have done that for other series, like The Acolyte, for example? Well, because The Acolyte is not supposed to be stupid, dumb fun. The Acolyte has dramatic moments in it. The Acolyte is supposed to be taken seriously. It's not a comedy. This pretty much is. I mean, this is the Suicide Squad getting isekai'd into a fantasy world where they fight orcs and elves and dwarves and dragons. Like, nothing about this is supposed to be serious whatsoever, especially when your lead character is Harley Quinn. So with something like this, it's a lot easier to just kind of shut your brain off and just enjoy it for the stupid, dumb entertainment that it is, as opposed to other series that are supposed to be taken seriously. So if you just look at it like that, the series is not that bad. It's entertaining. I'd give it like, I don't know, 6, 7 out of 10 maybe. Maybe a 6. If I'm comparing it to other anime, I'd give it a 6. If I'm comparing it to like other superhero stuff, then maybe a 7. But yeah, I enjoyed it. and I'm enjoying the series so far. Only got one more episode to go, and then we're done with this. And yeah, it's been an entertaining ride so far. Let's see if they can stick the landing. But there's Suicide Squad, Isekai episode 9. Just a lot of fight scenes. We get a big showdown, and we're basically setting up between the giant confrontation with the Undead King. We had some of that here, and I'm assuming we're gonna get like the final big boss battle, and then the epilogue and all that stuff. So hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.